Well, good evening, YouTube, and welcome to another heart to heart or shooting the shit, whatever you want, with the Rhino. So last night we started a video that I ended up taking down because I didn't get into what I really wanted to get into. To talk about what happened last night, we did start the video off. I did start giving the backstory, and then the video ended abruptly because I had a phone call, and it was a late night phone call from a no caller ID thing, and I'm like, let's take this, and it was the owner of a bar here in town, here in Regina, from Fat Badger. And the guy from Fat Badger called me because I had applied about an hour before that. I had applied to be the general manager of the Fat Badger. And he's like, "Oh my lord, I have never seen a resume that is so out there. You have everything. You could do everything I'd ever need you to do." And he's like, "I'm actually hiring for two jobs. I'm hiring for my my bar, but I'm also hiring for a Toyota dealership because I need a wholesale guy, and you'd have to travel once a week and go to different places and all that." And I go, "Well, mattering how that works and what day you're talking about, I could possibly do it, but I would have to have my wife drive me. I'm legally blind and can't get a license." He goes, "Oh, that's not going to work." And then he started backpedaling from the bar as well. He's like, "Well, I really want to interview you tomorrow, but I don't know what time. How about I call you tomorrow and I'll tell you a time to come in and we'll do an interview and this and that." And I go, "Okay, I'm home all day." And and he goes, "Okay, I'll call you tomorrow. I'll call you tomorrow. And your resume's amazing. I'll call you." He never called me today. It's okay because I like to research every job that I'm having an interview for. And there was a lot of stuff being talked about on that job about, they don't pay their workers, or they pay them late, and they do this, they do that. They don't pay you for all your hours. They've fired everybody. They've done this, they've done that. Apparently it's new ownership. So I'm like, well, I wasn't 100% sure if I was even going to show up for the interview. I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to show up for the interview. But after he didn't call me, I'm like, well, I guess you've basically answered my question for me on whether or not I want to go in. And for those of you that are wondering why I'm freaking out about money and everything, before we get into what yesterday's video was even about, this is why. Because every good job in Regina requires a license. I can't get a license. I'm blind. So I am basically swept into the curb, regardless of my resume speaking for itself, and my skills speaking for themselves, and my workmanship speaking for itself, and what I've been able to do speaking for itself. I can't get an interview to save my life because as soon as they find out that I'm disabled or that I don't have a license, I can't get shit. I had Dunlop Ford call me, Bennett Dunlop Ford, and they're like, "You have the best resume we've seen. We want you to do this. We want." And I did my interview, and like 25 minutes later, she actually called me back, and she's like, "I want to set you up with the hiring manager." I go, "Well, you did bring up in our interview that I have to drive cars. I can't drive." This was to run the. This was to be the manager of the service department, right? And I was supposed to have like 15 people below me, and she's like, "Well, that's unfortunate because in this position you may need to move cars and this and that." I go, "But don't I have a team of 15 people? Doesn't somebody in that team of 15 people have a license?" "Yeah, but we want our manager." I go, "So what you're telling me is that you're an equal opportunity employer, and I have the best resume you've ever seen for this job, and my interview was so amazing that you decided like 25 minutes later, before you even did your next interview, that we want to push you to the hiring manager, but we can't give you an interview with him because you can't drive." I go, "Doesn't that just seem a little discriminatory to you?" And she hung up the phone on me. But it's like, so this is why I'm freaking out, because I'm not allowed to have a good job in this city because I was born with eyes that don't work. I actually applied to be I applied to a lot of breweries as well, and most breweries wanted me to have a license. I'm like, "But what do I need a license to be your taproom manager for? Or what do I need a license to be this for? Or what do I need a license to be that for? Service advisors, they want you to have a license. The service advisor is the person that sits at the desk and sets up your time slots with the service department. That's what they do. Why do I need a license for that? Dispatchers at trucking companies, they're like, you need a license. I go, but I'm the dispatcher. I don't drive a truck. I don't do this. I don't do. How do I need? Well, you do. Most even retail stores, they're like, we want you to have a license. Like, oh, fuck. Doesn't matter how many millions of dollars I earned for a different company and how much I've learned and everything. My eyes don't work. Some fuck. Anyway, on to what we were talking about. So, one of the reasons I got so depressed and so worked up was money, and the money was mostly about Aiden. Aiden came to live with us. When Aiden came to live with us, every cent we had went into that child. We had saved up enough money to start thinking about possibly one day getting out. However, when we were in Pavernatook, it would take us almost $20,000 just to get ourselves out of Pavernatook, because it would have been about $15,000 to fly the entire family out of Pavernatook. And then you have to ship your shit out. So the company we worked for traps you, and they trap you in. They don't pay you enough to ever get out. And I see a comment, we will get to it. They don't pay you enough to ever get out, and if you do get out, you're bankrupting yourself to get out, because they don't pay to fly you out. No matter how long you've been with the company, you could be with the company 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, unless you've negotiated with head office a way to get out, you're paying your own way out. So it becomes a desperate grab to get out. I know my brother-in-law came into the company and he was suicidal. He was on suicide watch and this and that. They negotiated with him to stay for a month and a half. I don't fully believe he was where he said he was. I think he was playing a game. Myself, just knowing him. But I could be wrong. But if he was really where he said he was, making him stay for a year and a half, he could have been dead. Sorry, a month and a half. He could have been dead by the time he got out. I was on suicide watch as well. I've been suicidal in my life, as most of you know. After being sexually assaulted and having my family assaulted and having my dog murdered and having people break into my house and having this and having that and having fist fights in the store, fist fights on the street, guys trying to challenge me to fights when I was just walking around, like, I was on suicide watch again. I had to stay. By the time we had finally told head office we had to get out, to the time we got out of PUV, it was almost a year. And when we finally went up the chain of command, we found out that nobody had ever reported any of the things we talked about. So it was a horrible, horrible, horrible thing to find out. However, that's not what this video is really about. I mean, we're just talking about things and the desperation and all that. So we had saved up money because our entire concept was to get out. We went to the Arctic to pay off Alicia's debts. Never happened because we never made enough money. Partially because our first 3 years were in PUV, where your bonus for working in PUV was like $150. Ooh. And Quebec taxes you the highest of any province really in Canada. So we were getting taxed hard. And your travel benefits were huge. So Alicia was paying huge amounts of money back to the government. Like huge amounts of money. So when we finally were able to get out, when we finally decided to get out, it was too late to do anything, and you never could save enough money to. She was making about $25,000 a year more than me on paper without travel, and she was bringing home about $700 less than me a pay. With travel, she was making something like $80,000 more than me. But all it did, because it was taxable benefits, was knock her into higher tax brackets, so she would make even less money and owe even more money back to the government. I think our first year in Quebec, she owed something like $7,000 back to Quebec. It was an insane amount that boggled my mind because we were only in Quebec for 2 months, but Quebec demands the entire year worth of taxation, regardless of how long you could be in Quebec for a day. They want tax from the 365 days of the year. So we had saved up some money, and my ex-wife was like, "Hey, we want Aiden to. I want Aiden to come live with you for this, and this reason." And we're like, "Okay." He came to us with a suitcase, nothing else. He had no glasses. His eyes are fucked, so we had to buy glasses for the kid. At the time, we didn't have custody orders, so he wasn't covered with Alicia's benefits. He was only covered with mine. We had to get him up there. He wasn't part of our family at the time, so guess who had to fly him up? We had to buy him clothes. We had to buy him school supplies. We had to buy him toys. We had to buy him everything because he had nothing. He came up with a suitcase, and half the clothes in the suitcase didn't fit him. So I did everything I could for the kid. It took every cent we had saved. Then the time period ran out for the agreement we had with my ex-wife about, if he still lives with us after this time period, we should really talk about him moving with us for good. And I'm like, we're at this point. Are we going to talk about it? Ignored. About 2 months later, I'm like, "Hey, are we going to talk about this?" And she's like, "Oh, I just assumed he was going to live with you because this is what you told me when he came up, and it's what we agreed on." And I go, "Okay, it doesn't just work like that. We need to go through the courts to get everything set up so that I'm protected, you're protected, he's protected, everybody's protected." She's like, "Okay. You agree to all this stuff." We sent her all the stuff, and she's like, "Yeah, I agree to it all." I go, "Okay, so I'm going to get a lawyer. She will end up serving you, and because that's the way it works, and we will have to get this signed. So hopefully you just sign it and we're done." She's like, "Okay." So talk to my lawyer, and I'm like, "Look, I don't want child support. I don't want this. I don't want that. I don't care. I just want this done so it's over and we're good." And she goes, "Well, you guys don't get to decide if you get child support or not. That's up to the courts and this and that." And I go, "But I thought it says everywhere that we're allowed to negotiate our own child support if we want to." "Well, it doesn't really work that way." And I go, "But it says right online. I'm looking at the Fro website right now that we can negotiate our own shit." "Well, it doesn't really work that way because the judge has to." Okay. As soon as you tell her she owes child support for this, it's going to take forever and a lot of money. She goes, "No, just pay me the $3,000 deposit for my retainer fee and everything should be good." It's not going to be. "Okay, well, I'm telling you right now, she's agreed to this stuff. I see all the paperwork. Everything's good. $3,000 should pay for it all." So we pay her the $3,000. Start saving up and that took all of our money again that we had saved up after he had come to us. $15,000 later, we're a year and a half into this, and my ex-wife is still fighting about everything and anything she can. Now we're talking Section 7s and this and that, and we get, well, we have to get this done like ASAP. And I'm like, take her to court, take her in front of a judge, say, "I want my legal fees paid, because the only thing I'm asking for is what she's already agreed to, which is custody of my fucking son, who is living with me." "No, I don't know if we should go in front of a judge." Go in front of a judge and ask for custody, for the custody and my legal fees paid, because in Ontario, as long as I get what I started this off with, my legal fees can be paid. I'm getting custody of the kid. He lives with me. He's lived with me for over a year and a half. I'm getting custody of the kid. She's admitted to everybody, to every fucking psychologist, everything else, that he can't live with her. I'm winning this part of the fucking argument. It doesn't matter what she's countering with. I'm winning this part. Go in with this. No, I'm not going to. So $15,000 later, we get our minutes of settlement signed. This was September of last year. Fro contacts me about a month ago with, "We're going to start garnishing everything from you, and you could go to jail because you haven't paid this much money and this and that." They're still going off of my agreement from 2019 when I first came up here, before Aiden was even with us. And I'm like, I thought all this was done. Here's my minutes of settlement. Here's my minutes of settlement without her having signed it. I can't get her to send me them yet. I'm trying. I sent her requests for it. She's ignored me for over a week now, and they're like, "Well, you know what? We're putting a hold on all of her payments until this is done." I guess they responded to her as well because all of a sudden she sent me her version of it, and I sent in the version that we've both signed to them, and they go, "Well, that's not even worth the paper it's written on because we can't enforce that. We can't enforce it unless it's a court order." And I'm like, I started crying on the phone. I'm like, I don't know what any of you want from me. I'm not in the province. I'm already not making as much money as she's getting money out of me from. I never was making that much money. Because of the way the thing works, I pay her for even my bonus per month. I don't have that money. It's all taxed. It's all taxed away. I don't have that money. Like, I don't have anything. I get paid when I was with the Northwest Company. I was getting paid $49,000 a year. I had a $10,000 bonus. So they were charging me for $59,000 a year as my wage. Now again, $10,000 bonus. Even if I asked for it all in cash, I was only seeing $5,000 of that. But to try and mitigate some bits of shit, you don't take it all in cash. You put some of it into RRSPs and shit. And by the time it was all said and done, it was something like, fuck you, Chad. Doesn't matter. You're paying for. But so they're charging. I had to take a pay cut to get out of the Arctic. I had to get out of the Arctic because my son has special needs. There's no programs there. It was killing me. Again, I was on suicide watch since 2020, and it's now 2024. So 4 years, I tried to get through all of it. And I tried the best I could with desperation and everything else, because every time I thought we could get out, the money would disappear for different family reasons. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I can't stand another 2 or 3 years here. I can't. I need out. I need out. I need back to civilization. I need back where things are normal. I need back where life is normal. I get it. Life up there is hard. It's not for everybody. It's especially not for somebody who's trying to raise a family. But I get out. I finally get out. I've taken a pay cut to where I'm freaking out because I don't have enough money to pay my bills. Then I end up with an emergency thing I have to pay for, which is like $10,000. So I'm now $10,000 in debt where I already couldn't pay my bills. Then I find out that what I thought was over because of our minutes of settlement and all that isn't over because the Family Responsibility Office in Ontario is still after me for money that they're still charging me interest and everything else from 2019 while Aiden's lived with me since fucking 2020. And I'm like, I don't know what to fucking do. And then I find out that what happened was my lawyer never fucking put in the 14B paperwork to get it finalized as a final order, get it endorsed by a judge, because her legal assistant's like, well, we can do this and we'll do it as cheap as possible, but it's still going to be a charge to do it. And I sent her the bill. I sent her the bill that they sent me, and it was like, stand in front of a judge and say that this has been dealt with and this and that. I'm like, but didn't I just pay you like $2,000 to stand in front of a judge and say this was finished? Why wasn't it done then? Oh, well, that wasn't the 14B. That was just going in to say that we had made an agreement. I'm like, what the fuck? I've been in court like 7 times. This has never been the way this worked. What the fuck are you talking about? Mr. McGee, you shouldn't be so worked up. I'm worked up because I'm on the fucking verge of fucking going bankrupt again. And you guys are telling me that after I paid you over $10,000 for something that was supposed to take less than 3, I have to pay you more to get it endorsed by a judge so that Fro stops threatening to put me in jail for not paying something that I, for the last 4 years, wasn't supposed to be paying, but nobody has put the paperwork in. Like, what the fuck? Where the fuck is... Oh. And then people wonder why I'm so frustrated and so angry and... Good day, pop culture vegan. So just out of it. Like, you wonder why people go and do things that are fucking completely out of character. But this is the way the world works. And it's sickening. And so because my ex-wife has decided that I wouldn't be a stand-up father and pay for my kids and put us into fro, we have to always get everything, instead of just doing it as minutes of settlement, which is apparently legally binding, even if they're not endorsed, they're legally binding. They're they're not enforceable by fro because they're not put in front of a judge. Now, my ex-wife always goes to duty counsel or legal aid. She can't go to legal aid anymore. She makes too much money. So she always goes to duty counsel. So they're not going to do anything more than what she has to do. I have to pay for a lawyer all the time because just like her, I make so much money, but I can't go to duty counsel. I'm not there. I'm in Saskatchewan. She's in Ontario. So I don't. And the conversation I had with Fro was like, so nobody's ever put this into the interjurisdiction section of Fro, have they? They're like, no. Go, so if I stopped paying completely, technically there's nothing you can do because I'm not in Ontario and it's never been put through the court system to be endorsed in Saskatchewan. He's like, yeah, but the fact that you're crying on the phone about this tells me you're not going to do that. I go, you're right, I'm not, but I'm just trying to figure this out. I'm trying to figure out how all this works. I go, I don't even know what to do because I took a job to get my son out of the Arctic and to get my family out of the Arctic. I had to get myself out of the Arctic before I slit my wrists. I had to get my family out of the Arctic before something bad happened to them. I had to get my wife out of the Arctic before something bad happened to our relationship because she wasn't in a good place either, even though she doesn't want to admit it. She's so much happier now. I'm like, I had to take a pay cut to get out. I was already making $10,000 less a year than what was on paper because of a bonus. I go, so now I'm at like $16,000 less a year, and I'm still paying her this much money. I don't know how to get it lowered. You're telling me it has to go in front of a judge every time I try to get it lowered. I'm not in the province. I can't afford to pay. How do I get this done? He's like, I don't know what to tell you. I can't give you legal advice. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, what is going to happen to this autistic child if you all throw me over the edge and I fucking do something stupid? What's going to happen to this autistic child? What's going to happen to this special needs kid who is the sweetest kid in the world if I end up losing my mind because of this shit? What's going to happen to him? And then I go back on Sask Jobs and Job Bank and Indeed and everything else, trying to find a second job to try and supplement some of my income so that I can pay for this $10,000 idiocracy that happened, plus pay for some of this child support, plus pay for this lawyer shit and everything else. And everything's like, you need a license. I'm like, what the fuck? When is something going to fucking give? Anyway, that's what my video was about yesterday before I jumped off to take a phone call that was a waste of my fucking time. Anyway, thank you guys. Bye.